Welcome to KBS World Radio. You're now tuned in to Korea24's Korea Book Club, where we explore the world of Korean literature. This is our weekend replay edition, playing back our book segment from Wednesday's show. We hope you enjoy it. I'm your host, Kwon Jang-woo. Joining us in the studio now is our literary critic, Barry Welsh, with another notable work for us to discover. Barry, hello, it's great to see you.
Yes, hello.
Okay, so what have you brought for us today?
This week we're reviewing a short novel called The Long Road. The Korean title is Mon-gil, by Kim In-suk and translated by Stephen J. Epstein. Kim made her Korean debut in 1983 at the age of 20, and over a long career that now spans 4 decades, has published over 30 books, including novels and short story collections. And during her career, she's also won the top 3 Korean Literature Awards, the Isang Literary Award, the Dongin Literary Award, and the Daesan Literary Award. But unlike her contemporaries, Shin Kyung-suk and Gong Ji-young, Kim doesn't have much available in translation. She doesn't have a collection of novels in translation like those other writers do. There's a few short stories that she has translated in journals and collections, but today's novel, and it's a short novel, is unfortunately her most substantial work in English translation at the moment. And it was originally published in 1995 in Korea, and the English translation followed in 2010. And what actually made me, or what reminded me of this story was a story we reviewed a few weeks ago called Love in Sapa by Bang Hyung-suk. And that story is about a Korean immigrant living in Vietnam, reflecting on his life in Korea during the repressive 1980s. And this story, The Long Road by Kim In-suk, it's also in this same genre of Korean immigrant stories about Koreans who fled the country because of the brutal political repression during the decade of the 80s. And it tells the story of 3 Korean men, 3 middle-aged men now, living in Australia, and it explores the immigrant experience, from a variety of perspectives. It's a very perceptive story and an insightful one, and one that I think lots of readers will enjoy thinking about.
Okay, so once again, we're exploring work that taps into the impact of that challenging decade for the Korean people, to say the least, the 1980s, when the country was ruled by Chun Doo-hwan's military dictatorship, which cracked down on the pro-democracy activities of students and citizens in, of course, an often brutal and unforgiving fashion. This era has it's been explored in lots of Korean novels and films before, but these works usually focus on events happening within Korea itself, unlike today's work. So then, Barry, how does Kim reflect the repression of the 1980s through the lives of these Korean immigrants living in Australia?
Right, yes. So although it is set in Australia, and as you said, this story is about what living through that decade, living through the 1980s and the military dictatorship did to Korean people, did to Korean citizens, and the aftermath, the sort of lingering after effects and aftermath of those experiences. So we're introduced to 3 Korean men, all now living in Australia. The first of these men, Myung-woo, was apparently a political activist, although the truth might be a little stranger, as we learn. But he was apparently some kind of political activist who left the country fearing persecution from the authorities, and he's now achieved the very rare feat of being awarded political refugee status, and therefore also has permanent residence status from the Australian government. But he works as a cleaner, and he seems like he's been shell-shocked or traumatized by his experiences in Korea and can't move past them. And then we also have Han Nim, who was a popular folk singer who had a hit song called The Long Road. But this song brought him to the attention of the military, and the song was banned. And then he was subsequently targeted because of not only the song, but also because of his marijuana use. And he now lives a very embittered life, piloting a tour boat off the Australian coast. And then finally, there's Hanim's brother Han-young, whose reasons are initially a bit more ambiguous. So was he attracted to Australia by the seemingly comparatively easy life that it offers, or is he fleeing something back home? And that we sort of learn more about his reasons as the story progresses. But as the story begins, these free men, they come together for a reunion and to go on a fishing expedition in Han-nim's boat. And as they venture out to sea, the story flashes back to fill the reader in on the events that forced them all to leave Korea, and asks, what does it mean for these free people that they can never return home?
Okay, so clearly there's a lot going on. There's a lot of layers to unpack, it seems. Through these contrasting characters and situations, what does Kim then have to say about the Korean immigrant experience? Right,
so it really is a very interesting novel in that regard. So this theme of immigrant life is a main concern of the story. There's other things going on, but this is really the thrust of the story. So each of the three men has contrasting expectations and different experiences that they're drawing on, and we see how they attempt to deal with living in a different country and the varying strategies and attitudes that they've taken to this experience. So Han-young feels like he needs to forget the person that he was in Korea. Initially he's surprised at the differences between Australians and Koreans, like, for example, in their attitudes to work. Quite amusingly, with the Australians having a much more laid-back approach. But once he thinks he's adjusted and even come to enjoy this new pace of life, it's then that he realises that there's still some kind of barrier between him and his co-workers in the country itself. And he says ultimately they were Australians and he was an immigrant. And then Han-nim is filled with, bitterness and resentment. He thinks of Korea as a sewer, a pigsty, and a torture chamber, he says. And he spends his time drinking and, getting high on marijuana. And at one point he advises Myung-woo, he says to Myung-woo, what can we do in a foreign country? What would be the point of coming all this way if the goal was to knock ourselves out earning money? What people with permanent residence can do, permanently enjoy the place. But he's only sort of superficially enjoying his life. He's really been embittered by these experiences, but he embraces this kind of permanent adolescence. And then finally we have Myung-woo, who sees immigration as just a chance to disappear, and he says it doesn't feel like any country, it's just a place for me to be alone. And so we see through these sort of different experiences the shifting perspectives that Kim is using to explore the reasons why people leave their home country and how it affects them.
Once again, it's called The Long Road by Kim In-suk, and that was our pick for this week's Korea Book Club. Barry, thank you once again for introducing us to this work, and we look forward to the next one. Take care.
Okay, take care.
KBS World Radio offers all you need to know on Korea through its various programs. Tune in to One Fine Day with Lena Park and join the K-pop diva for 2 fine hours every weekday. Are you into the latest K-pop tracks? Then K-pop Connection is your fix. Brian Ju brings you the best of K-pop and K-culture. On Korea 24, host Kwon Jang-ho helps listeners digest all the biggest stories coming out of South Korea. Keep up with what's happening on the peninsula by listening to Korea 24. Learn about Korean folktales on Mondays with global audiobook Once Upon a Time in Korea. If you're a bookworm, don't miss Books on Demand, a program that introduces Korean literature to the global audience every Tuesday. Our Wednesday program, Korea Today and Tomorrow, provides news on the latest diplomatic developments in and around the Korean peninsula. Want to go deeper than K-pop? Sounds of Korea takes a closer look at various traditional music every Thursday. KBS World Radio is your go-to channel for all things Korea. Tune in.
Tune in. I love my radio. Around the world, anywhere, anytime. La 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 la. KBS World Radio.
KBS World Radio.